Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to the afternoon session. You are in the new security endpoint with Chrome Enterprise and Jamf session. Few quick housekeeping items. You're going to hear a great session from Alex today. At the end, we'll do Q&A. I'd love to run the microphone around so that people on the recording can hear your questions. And the Chrome Enterprise team does have awesome swag at the end of the session if you come with a good question or just want to say hi. So with that, in today's rapidly evolving threat landscape, securing endpoints has become more critical than ever. This session will explore how Chrome Enterprise and Jamf can work together to create a new standard for endpoint security in your organizations. We'll dive into the latest management and security capabilities that can support your organization. And with that, everyone please give a big round of applause for Alex Bauer.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining my session. I know there's lots of sessions to choose from, so it means that a lot of you actually made it to this one and chose this one over the other ones. My name is Alex Bauer. I'm a deployment success engineer for Chrome Enterprise Premium. I've been doing Chrome Enterprise for the last 5.5 years, so I could say that for the last 5 years I've been helping spread the gospel of Chrome to my customers. Up until this year, I would predominantly focus on one of our products called Chrome Enterprise Core, which was just the browser management. And this year, I started focusing more on the premium aspect. But at the end of the day, it's all Chrome. So we're informing our customers about all the capabilities you have in Chrome around management and security. And at the end of the day, we hope that you choose the best browser, which we know which one that is. So based on some studies with Gartner, we're learning that by 2030, we're expecting that most enterprise browsers will be the core platform for delivering workforce productivity and security software on devices, whether they're managed and unmanaged. So with that, we're seeing that most customers are taking their applications, they're getting rid of those legacy clients, and they're either getting rid of even their on-prem applications and then just moving them either into a SaaS environment or a cloud environment, and they're accessing all these applications through a web browser, right? So the web browser becomes your most important security tool and productivity tool. Up until a few years ago, your web browser was merely the tool used to check your email, maybe, do a little bit of shopping, check your YouTube, but now it's becoming a core product in terms of your day-to-day work. So with that, as I said, the use case of the browser kind of blurs, right? It's not just a consumption, it's a productivity tool. And with that, we also start getting all sorts of interesting concepts or issues such as threats, right? Phishing and malware, extensions that overnight become risky and start getting a little more aggressive on the data that they capture off of your device. Based on some of the conversations we have with our customers, we're learning that many customers don't necessarily control their browser experience. It's like a wild, wild west. Customers sign in with their Gmail account, they sync up their passwords and their history, and then their account gets hacked. And now all of a sudden, the company gets hacked. Okta. You also don't have enough visibility in the extensions that are in your environment, such as what they're pulling data from in terms of your browsing history or what type of data they're fishing off of the user's profile and so forth, right? And then in the browser itself, there's not many, up until now, there used to not be many controls around data exfiltration. You would be depending on your legacy tools that would hopefully protect you around people doing interesting things with your corporate data, which could be your PII data or any sort of data that would be important for you guys in terms, or that you would be considering critical for that matter. So the browser, as I said, becomes your new standard, right? And the whole idea around the secure browser is that it protects your corporate data while users work securely from anywhere on any device. So with that, we have worked a little bit with the Jamf, and Jamf has joined the Beyond Corp Enterprise Consortium. And what that does is allows us to work together to offer a premier experience for your devices. So, and we'll cover that in just a second. But as I've been saying also is that the traditional model, right, the browser becomes your consumption product, and you're accessing all of your applications at the end of the day with web apps, SaaS apps, on-prem apps, and everything else. In Chrome, we offer a few layers of management. We offer the basic Chrome out of the box, which gives you a okay experience, right? We can call this the good, better, best model, right? Good, Chrome out of the box. Chrome Enterprise Core is what we've been talking for the previous Jamf events. If you've been seeing any of my other sessions, is that you can take your browsers and enroll them into a cloud-based management solution, and you're able to deploy policies, extension controls, update controls, and get all sorts of reportings. And those controls apply for all of your platforms. Let's face it, we're at an Apple conference. We think that this is the best product, right? Because that's why we're here. But you'll have other platforms in your environment, most of you, right? You have some Windows devices, some iOS devices, some Android devices, Chrome OS, hopefully none of the other stuff, BlackBerry and whatnot. But at the end of the day, is you're trying to offer a cohesive experience for your users in terms of a browser, right? So this is what Chrome Enterprise Core allows you to do. You configure one set of policies that get deployed on all of the browsers that you enroll into the console. We also make it easy for you to control extensions, because up until now, if anyone does extension management through Jamf, yeah, you need kind of like a dictionary or a college degree to decipher those extension IDs, right? It's a pain in the, right? So with Chrome Enterprise Core, you're able to very easily understand all the extensions that are configured in terms of policy. You get the extension name, you get the risk score about those extensions, what data they're pulling off of the device. So you very quickly understand what's configured in terms of policy. And now with Chrome Enterprise Core, the best model, right? This is where you expand the functionality of Chrome, where in browser native, we're able to do DLP controls, context door access controls, VPN-less access to all of your applications. This is what we've been using at Google since 2011. So a little fun fact is in 2008, we've released Chrome. In 2009, we were still using, as a standard, other browsers that have met their doom, Internet Explorer, right? One of our employees was accessing an application that was maliciously compromised by a foreign agent. That foreign agent was then able to get into our network and hack our systems, right? So we've decided at that point that we're going to overhaul the way we look at security, and we built a tool called Chrome Enterprise. And we've been using that extensively internally at Google since 2012 or 2011, right? So we've been dogfooding this product extensively before we decided to release it to our customers, or our partners and everyone else. So Chrome Enterprise Premium gives you, with the DLP agent, or the DLP integration or functionality, you're able to analyze all copy, print, upload, download actions into the browser. You're able to analyze real-time the data that gets passed on through those actions, and you can look at anything that could be PII for you. You define these rules for yourself, whether there's like, as an example, social security numbers, credit card numbers, account numbers. If you're in healthcare, maybe your health record ID or whatever else it may be, right? You define these rules, and whenever we detect these type of datas, right, you're able to set up actions based on those datas, whether you want to block them, audit them, you want to put a watermark on them, you want to put in a notification to the user to inform them that, you shouldn't necessarily be printing like 15 different social security numbers, because that's a data leakage, right? So you can inform your users to do better choices in terms of their IT behavior. We're able to provide native, once again, in-browser URL filtering. So what that does is you're able to set up, once again, rules. It's all based on the rules that you build in the console. To look at, for example, categories of pages. Since we index the world, right, the index the internet, we kind of have a very good idea of what certain pages do. And so with that, we're able to put, for example, a rule to disable gambling at work, right? You just configure it for gambling, at which point when users go to a site that is tagged for gambling, you're able to block them from getting to it. So you don't have to build these like giant lists of this page is bad, this other page is bad, this other page is bad, and at which point you start getting confused what's in there, right? You can also put in words lists. So if there's certain keywords that you care about, and you want to block access for those websites, you can do that as well. But you can also do audit of traffic with that functionality. So if you want to see how many times users go to a specific page, you can set up a rule to look at that. We do real-time or malware and phishing protection. And so what that does for you is anytime a user uploads or downloads a file, we will sandbox that file, intercept the file, send it into, or analyze it with our virus total solution, which is a aggregate of about 30 different security tools. So we'll take that file apart in so many ways to make sure that it is not malicious. And if it passes the muster test, then we will release it and either complete the upload or download. So that allows you to prevent any sort of malicious spread, right? Malicious or malware spread into your network, right? All these PII documents that you're trying to download or upload can be now securely stored in an evidence locker, so your IT admin or security admin can look at what the user was doing, what kind of data they were actually trying to upload, download, print, or whatever. So then they either figure out they need to contact the user and give them an education on what they could be doing, or maybe build that case to kind of walk them out, right? So that's the DLP aspect. On top of that, what we're doing is we're providing you context or access to your applications. And so these applications could be SaaS apps, could be data on-prem apps in your data center, right? They could be apps in GCP, AWS, or wherever they could be residing, right? We're able to put in an identity or a proxy in front of all these applications. And then with that, we're able to look at over 30 different device signals and use that in conjunction with your identity, right? And gate those applications and be very granular on whether the user is able to access those applications or not. So at Google, I don't have a VPN. I just sign into my browser. Google's able to determine whether I have a Google device or a personal device. So from that perspective, I can access maybe 10 pages at my home device, maybe get into Workday, check my calendar, tell my boss I want to have a day off because I'm sick or whatever. But I can't access most of the work pages where I would be doing work, right? And then we're able to integrate all of our console and send all these events to various security providers like Splunk, Google Security Center, which is what I guess Chronicle is now called, and some of the other tools as well. Okay, so I kind of started earlier. I got excited on saying how awesome it is to work with Jamf. But the way the process works with us is you enroll your device, for example, in Jamf. Jamf is then sending a device record back to our Google admin console. Jamf deploys Chrome browser. It deploys the enrollment token to bring it into management. We're going to cover that in a little bit of a demo in a second. At that point, Chrome Enterprise Premium gets activated on the browser. When it gets started, we're able to collect the details from the device itself. We're able to aggregate those details with the Jamf details that we get from the Jamf side, and we can use all these data points to gate applications or data loss prevention rules, right? So we're able to tell whether a device is Jamf managed, whether it is compliant, whether it is compromised, and so forth. And with that, you can either get to your resources or not, right? Yeah. So, demo, right? Slides are fun, but they get boring very quickly. So we have two types of devices through all of these demos that we're going to kind of walk through. The green device is a corporately managed device. I know it's a little small, but you can see on the left side there's a set of machine policies. That's the top left box. And on the right side there's a user policy. So I'm signed in with a Google identity, which is my work account, for example, into my corporate device. That device is enrolled into our console, and it is reporting in here. As you can see, that there's admin's device. It's enrolled into the Jamf organizational unit, and I can get some details about it, who's the user, where the application is installed. I have a profile that's associated with my identity. I have an inventory of all the extensions and all the policies. And additionally to that, it is also reporting under a different section of the console as a company-owned device. And I can see on the very bottom that there's a Jamf health score. I have not decided to collect the health score, but you can see that I start getting informed that this device is Jamf managed. So, quick summary on Chrome Enterprise Core. I mentioned that you can get a lot of reports. One of the reports I like to showcase my customers is like, do you know what extensions you have in your environment? If you're not managing extensions, if your CISO calls you, That's a really fun exercise to try and detect what extensions you have. In here, we give you a report of everything that's in there. How many extensions you have, whether they're ready for Manifest v3, your risk score, we provide that for you automatically. You can click on each extension to get more details about it, but this allows you to see a company view of anything that's in your browser population. Now, you might be wondering, like, once again, how do I get a browser into management? First thing I do is I go and generate an enrollment token in the admin console. I choose the enrollment OU where that device will be enrolling. And then I choose my favorite MDM, which is Jamf. I go and I build a configuration profile. Jamf has made it super easy for you guys to do this. You give it a name for your profile. You go into application custom settings, external application, choose your favorite browser, which we know what it is since you're here. And then from there, you provide it with a simple text box, paste that token, set up your assignment groups, and you're off to the races, right? As soon as Chrome restarts, it becomes fully enrolled into our console. The red device is my work from home device. The only difference between the two of them is the fact that I don't have an enrollment token, right? But I'm still signed in, you can see on the very top, with the same Google identity. So now if you see demos for the next screens, red is my home device, green is my work device, but I'm the same user. Really quick, this device shows up in my console as a user device, but on the very bottom, you don't see any sort of Jamf attributes. So that also tells me that it's unmanaged, right? So first things first, I'm going to go on my work device. I'm going to go into a file share, Google Drive for this demo, but for any use case that you can think of, insert whatever file storage you want, or any application that would be allowing me to download the file, right? Could be Salesforce or whatever. I'm going to select some of the data. You see I have access to a bunch of social security numbers. I'm going to copy it at a later point, but first thing I'm going to try and do is print it. I'm going to try and print the file, press print, at which point we're real-time analyzing the file. It's notifying me that, you shouldn't be doing this at work, but tell me why you're doing this, give me a reason, I need it for work, continue anyway. It's going to print, but now that event is captured that, Joe Schmo needed this file for work, and he printed it. Now all of a sudden Joe Schmo's paper is found in the news or whatever, so you know that he probably did something bad with the file, with the data. On my home device, I'm going to access the same type of file. I can view the data, but when I try to print it, it's going to, I'm going to copy it once again because I'm going to use it in the next demo. But when I try to print it, it's going to once again analyze the file real time, at which point Chrome is going to yell at me and tell me that you shouldn't be doing this at work, and I'm going to block your print action. Okay, so I can't print the file. Let me see if I can save it. So I'm going to go into my Google Drive. I'm going to try and download the file. On my home device, work device, I was messing with this. I was able to download it, right? And it takes a second for the download to trigger, and I'm able to get this file. It gets analyzed, passes the rules that I have in place, and I have the file downloaded. On my home device, when I try and download this file, it gets analyzed once again, real time. It doesn't pass my rules that I have in place. It yells at me, you should not be doing this at home, and I don't get access to the file. Okay, can't print it, can't download it. Let me see if I can get some of this data and send myself an email or whatever. We're going to do this with the DLP test. It's just a basic text box, right? But I'm showing you the difference between the experiences between a work device and a home device. So I'm able to take that data that I copied earlier, put it in any sort of application you want, and paste it on a work device because I inherently trust the device the way I built these rules for this demo. On my home device, if I try and access the same type of data or paste the same type of data, we're going to once again analyze this data in real time, at which we're yelling at the user once again, bad user, can't do anything at work, at home. You should be doing this only at work where I can monitor you or get better controls on what you're doing on the device. I also have a file maybe that I want to attach in an email. As you can see on my work device, it's attaching just fine. If I go on my home device and I choose this file to attach it, I pick the sample data that has a bunch of social security numbers again, and I can't send it to myself as an email. So we're forcing the user to do better in terms of data, but we're also preventing data leakage from making itself where it shouldn't be. Okay, next thing we want to showcase is our integration with the third-party provider like Okta. Any of you guys have Okta? Great. Okta can query the browser in real time for certain data points and use that as part of an initial gating process. So on my work device, you see I'm going to my Okta launcher, and I'm accessing Salesforce, right? Salesforce is loading just fine. I'm able to do my job. Everyone's happy. On my home device, I can go into my Okta launcher and see all the applications that I'm enabled to get access to, right? But when I choose to go to Salesforce, Okta is going to yell at me because it's unable to get the right device details that it wants, at which point I can't get into it. So with our integration from Chrome and third-party providers like Okta and Ping, you can ensure that your users access those corporate applications only through approved browsers where you can collect their right details, right? So people going into Brave and other browsers and accessing corporate data, it's a thing of the past through this. Okay, next thing I want to showcase, so we've been doing context-aware, for example, through Okta, but we can also take that context-aware and put it purely in front of applications through the Google side, right? Google applications, or it could be any of your SaaS applications. So here you can see that I'm going to my calendar. I'm also going to my Gmail. I can do work, right? Everything loads just fine. Now, if I go into my home device, I can get into calendar just fine. I can see my meetings for the day. But if I go into Gmail, Gmail's going to yell at me. Based on the context-aware policy that I put in place, I'm not allowing my users to go into the application because of whatever rules I decided to. For example, this allows you to put in the idea of a shift, right? A work shift. I know European Union gets very excited about these kind of controls because they really love their work-life balance. So this allows you to really ensure that your users are not going to decide to work after hours and then try to get you in trouble because they were able to do work, right? Next thing I want to showcase is the concept of URL blacklisting or blocking, right? I mentioned earlier in the presentation that I can put in rules that block gambling sites, and I was going to a gambling site and that was blocked. I'm also accessing, for example, Google News. I consider that as a bad site, for example. And in there, you saw that there was a watermark that was applied to the file, to the page. So think of this, for example, you go into data that is very important for you, like a Salesforce record or health records for your users or whatever it may be, and you want to make sure that users cannot just whip their phone out, take a picture, send that to the news or whatever it may be, and then data leakage happens. So we can put policies to block users from taking screenshots, but on top of that, we're able to put watermarks so you can trace the screenshot back to whoever took it, right? For this one, you can see that there's a, it says there's a custom message that says confidential information, but there's also the device serial ID that's tagged in there. For my work from home device, since we kind of go back and forth between devices, I'm going to choose the user too because it's their off work hours. Hopefully, they can still go to the gambling site. I'm going to enforce them that they shouldn't be doing that from a managed profile, but they can still get to it. On Google News, it was a little hard to see since it's a lot of white. We're able to put in, once again, a watermark, but the watermark had the user's email address. So once again, we can capture who the user was, either their device or their email address, depending on how they're accessing the data from a managed profile or a managed browser. And one thing I forgot to mention is if your user goes, for example, at home and tries to sign into their Google account on their main Gmail profile, it will force a new profile to be created. So that is like the awesome thing about this is that it'll generate that work personal separation so you can securely control that work profile without impacting their personal stuff so they can't yell at you like, man, you're controlling my Gmail profile. What's going on in there, right? Okay, so that was kind of like the demo of it. I want to kind of cover a little bit from an architecture perspective, the way you would be accessing some of your applications. They could be SaaS applications, they could be applications in your data center or anything like that. So if my application resides in Google Cloud, let's say Redmine, App3, or whatever it may be, the only thing that I'm accessing is I'm accessing a global load balancer that has an identity or a proxy enabled in it, and my data flow just gets straight to that application, and based on the context or policies that I put in place, I can gate the users to that application and control them, right? Once again, things that I can look at, device management or profile management of the browser. Is there a certificate that's signed by your root CA? I can look at the certificate fingerprint. Do you have specific managed preferences or registry changes in your device that I would care about? Is there a specific file present on the device? Is there a binary that's actually running right now, like CrowdStrike or whatever? Well, maybe not CrowdStrike, because that might take your business down. But is there a specific security tool that you have in mind that needs to run? Or is your device coming in from your corporate network or other network? Is your device in the correct geolocation, right? If you're in China, we can put in place for you to definitely block you from accessing our corporate data or things like that, right? So lots and lots of different type of device signals that you can put in place for those context rules or context levels. If your application resides in a different data center, so for this one, we have AWS or private data center, or does Microsoft still offer cloud? Entra Cloud, Azure Cloud, whatever cloud instance, or your on-prem data center, right? We can do a few connection mechanisms. We can do an IPsec tunnel, at which point your data center has a tunnel with Google Cloud, and in there we can set up an on-prem connector on the GCP side, and then traffic flows through the green data flow back to a load balancer, and then once again identity or proxy kicks in. You can also do a physical interconnect between those data centers and GCP, and once again on-prem connector kicks in, and identity or proxy. These two data flows are nice because you can automate them, so you can use Terraform to very quickly activate or trigger new applications for your users. All of these use cases, for example, would require that you generate a DNS record for your application. So if you're building, for example, app.jamf.com is your application, you would put in a DNS record on your perimeter DNS that would point to a GCP IP address that would be the IP address for that load balancer, right? So now you're telling the users when they go to app.jamf.com, they're technically hitting our Google load balancer, at which point we're doing all the analysis and the gating of the application. If you choose not to connect your data center through Google, you can use something called an app connector service. The app connector service allows you to create a reverse proxy to your data center, in which case, once again, no tunnel, no VPN tunnel or anything like that on your corporate device or work device or home device for that matter. You don't have to tie the data center together. You're accessing the application once again. You have that DNS record. But now we're reverse proxying, or we're sending that data automatically from our on-prem appliance that is installed in your data center. It's just a very simple Debian Linux box that runs a little Docker application. We're sending all that data through the Docker application into our app connector service, and you're able to access that application. This one, you cannot automate it, but this approach would be what I call the easy button. You can do it through GCP if you want to build all the load balancer configuration and everything else, or you can build it through the Google Admin Console. And this is where, as I said, the easy button. All you need to put in is fill in the application URL that you want to provide for the users. You fill in the IP address, which is your internal IP address for the application with the port number, and choose which connector, if you have multiple connectors installed in your data center, and press done. We built all the load balancers and all the configuration, create the certificate that's required to secure the connection. Everything is done. And at the end of the whole process, we spit out an IP address. Tell you take that IP address, put in the DNS record, boom. You're able to access the application and put conditional access policies to it. If you don't want to do a reverse proxy implementation, we're finishing up right now an implementation for a forward type proxy, which then removes the need for any sort of DNS records, but it builds almost like a proxy pack implementation where you build a list of your applications that are internal in your data center, and those applications get automatically forwarded through that forward proxy appliance that you deploy, so you don't have to have that DNS record in place. But as soon as the user signs into the Chrome browser and tries to hit that application, we forward the traffic, context-aware kicks in, DLP can kick in to control what they're doing in the application, and they're able to do their job. So once again, no VPN, minimize the whole IT stack that runs on those devices. Any questions? I know I blew through this really fast.
Yeah, so first off, let's give a round of applause for Alex. All right, we do have time for Q&A, so I'm going to run around to you. We are recording this, so we want the virtual audience to be able to hear it as well. And like I said, at the end of the session, would love for you to come grab some Chrome dynos. So show of hands, who's got a question? I'm going to start right here.
And I guess for the virtual audience, next time come here to get the swag.
Thank you for the presentation. We literally just rolled out Enterprise Core to our Mac fleet. The Windows fleet is taking a little longer for testing, as usual. But we use 365 for our sign-in with Edge, and since that's like the majority of what we want to do, is there a way to add an extension or something to Chrome that would allow people to sign into their 365 account and get the same benefits that they get in Edge?
Yes, and maybe. So one thing I was hoping to be able to present at this conference and there's one more thing to kind of talk about, is we are actively working on extensible single sign-on functionality for Mac OS. I know that has been extensively requested by customers, especially Microsoft customers, to sign in one time and be able to sign into Chrome. We heard you. We're working on it. We have that documented for iOS. Apparently that works native, so yay. I guess the only benefit of Safari is being the only browser technically on an iOS device. Now, what we could do is we could set up like Azure could be your identity provider. Azure can then provision the Google accounts automatically on our side. You can still do Azure authentication. So when you go to Google to authenticate initially, it will take you to Azure, you authenticate, and then you go back to Chrome.
Okay, does that require the premium version, or is that something Core is capable of doing?
So that is if you want to do Chrome Enterprise Premium with Google Identity, Sync, and everything else. If you want to do Chrome Enterprise Core, you would need to get Cloud Identity free. You can petition on the support page. There's a link that walks you through the steps of petitioning to increase the size of the licenses you have to your company size plus buffer space, right? Don't ask if you're 100 employees, don't ask for 100, ask for 400 or whatever. And then you can do the same thing. Azure can provision the accounts, so then that way you can get Google Sync in place as well. We're also working on another implementation, and that should be coming out very shortly. This one is, I would say, more for contractors. But what it does allow you to do is, as part of the authentication workflow in O365, the response that O365 gives back in that workflow is it's an additional message that would be the enrollment token for Chrome. That triggers a new profile to be generated in Chrome. That's a managed profile, and that's useful. That's why I said it's mostly for contractors, because the idea is you're accessing it from an unmanaged device. So then that allows you to access or trigger a managed profile, in which point you can push additional policies and everything. It would probably work better if you have some Chrome Enterprise Premium, so you can actually give them access to the application. But if not, and you give them access to Okta or whatever else it may be, Salesforce or whatnot, you can still ensure yourself that when they're accessing that data for your, they're your you're their customers, right? So when they're accessing to do work for you, they're doing the work from a secure profile where you're actually being able to enforce certain extensions, controls, and things like that.
Okay, that's really great. I have one more question. I'll try to be quick. I didn't see in the presentation talk about APIs, but I did notice that in the default configuration without any changes, things like Jira, Atlassian will like automatically be detected, and then they show up in the API section. But from a security standpoint, Right now they're unmanaged. Is it recommended to prevent that from happening and then add in the ones that you do use in your environment, or is it?
Are you talking about extensions with APIs?
I think this is more about accounts.
Accounts?
So yeah, it's. I'm trying to see what section it's under, but yeah, it's just it shows up as an API request to Google.
So I would like to better understand that use case. So maybe we can table that for after the session,
Sure.
and I can
Thank you.
probe more.
All right, more hands, more questions.
Thanks. So I know we talked about how we were going to, excuse me, is going to have a connection into the data centers and whatnot. So what about like shared drives inside the data center? Would you have access to those without the VPN as well?
So those shared drives are not web applications, right?
They're not, right?
So the idea is that this is technically for web applications. I forgot to mention that we can also secure, for example, tunnel sessions. So if you have like an SSH session, we can apply conditional access policies or controls for those tunnel sessions and gate them that you're accessing them from the correct device type, correct user, and everything else. But shared drives, if you access them through like a SMB, through the browser, yeah. But otherwise, I would say that's not quite the correct use case for this.
Gotcha.
So we're using Google Workspace Enterprise, and as we go through with Connect for our new user, is it on the roadmap, or is there a way to have Connect automatically sign the user into Chrome?
Jamf Connect.
Jamf Connect, and we're also using Okta. So.
I think, Sam, we can probably take that one.
I would say come chat with Alex and I. There may be things happening in the Google and Apple ecosystem that will solve that someday. If you're familiar with how it works with Microsoft and Okta, looking to emulate that experience, open some cloud blocker tickets with your Google reps, talk to us, and there's a path. Not today, but would love to continue to get that feedback.
From a Windows perspective, you can take advantage of our GCPW solution. It's not the best approach if you're fully Microsoft. It's called the Google Cloud Password something, PW. It allows you to sign into the OS with the Google account, at which point you're able to authenticate in Chrome and everything else. But it's, I think, only for Windows. I did forget to mention that Chrome Enterprise Premium, if anyone are, this is a great product or whatever, how much does it cost, right? The MSRP for the product is $6 a user a month. MSRP. Usually no one pays MSRP, so what you do is you call your favorite Google product drug dealer and ask them for a special street price on the product, and they'll work out a deal for you to get the right license count and the right price, right?
Really good questions. We got a few more.
You mentioned the provisioning through Jamf, where basically you push a token through a configuration profile. What we've noticed, and we would like to hear some feedback from you or suggestions, is if we need to make a change to a specific business unit, let's say finance wants a new bookmark, but previously they've been in a global profile, so moving them within the Jamf doesn't move the device within the Google backend.
Yes.
Are there any best practices how to tackle that?
Yes. So currently we have a feature that is by request only, but what it does is it allows you to, for the browser, to automatically change organizational unit if its enrollment token has changed. So what you can do then is, because currently the default behavior for the enrollment token is it's a one-time deal, at which point Chrome doesn't care about it. I've seen the enrollment token, hey, admin console, I'm trying to enroll, great, I'm in the system. I see that enrollment token, I don't care about it. But with that functionality, we could technically be like, hey, I guess the enrollment token has changed. Hey, admin console, I have a new enrollment token, can I change? At which point we can move the OU for you. So request only for now. We put that on purpose because the behavior was the default for so long, and if we change the behavior, we've learned that the hard way, that if you change the default behavior and not necessarily inform customers, they might get a little unhappy and then pitchforks and everything else. You can try to inform your customers as much as possible through release notes and everything else, but there's going to be that one guy that misses through the, misses reading that, and then they come yelling at you. So, but if you need that functionality, come see us, and we can request that for you. Or at the end of the thing, we have some QR codes. You can scan those, get in touch with us, and we can do that for you.
Thanks.
All right, we got time for one or two more.
I just wanted to know, are all these features of Chrome Enterprise available through, because we're through Google Workspace, not sure if it's Enterprise or Business Plus. But
Okay.
Are all of these features included in Google Workspace?
So Chrome Enterprise Core doesn't necessarily care what Google licenses you have. You can be the biggest anti-Google shop. If you sign up for the admin console, you get access to the Chrome Enterprise Core, and you can manage all of your Chrome browsers. Google Workspace has access to the DLP capability that is purely in Workspace, but you don't get any sort of Chrome Enterprise Premium functionality outside of Workspace. So what I mean by that is any sort of application that's not Google Workspace, if you're trying to gate it or apply DLP controls, that's where the license requirement comes into play. And then Hat over there has another question.
You mentioned that at one point that the work profile would automatically be created on a home device, for instance. Is the opposite true? If they tried to log into a home account or a college account on a work device, would it create the profile?
Yes. So we have an extensive list of policies that you can configure in Chrome in the admin console. Literally hundreds of policies, and each policy notifies you or informs you which platform it's supported on. But in terms of profile separation, there are a bunch of controls that you can really be prescriptive on. Anytime you sign into a Google account, force a new profile to be generated. I can block you from signing into Gmail if you wanted to. I can restrict you to only sign into these type of domains. I can restrict you to not only sign in on the profile layer, but going into the Google Apps at that for those domains. But yes, you can actually force a new profile to be generated. And the best part about it is once you start looking at policies the way they come in play from the Managed Browser Organizational Unit, and you stack them together with the user policies, you can, for example, set up a horrible experience for your users on the Gmail side. No syncing for you, no passwords, no history, no nothing. Makes you feel better that you can access a new profile, then you can go to Amazon or YouTube or whatever it is on your Gmail profile. But once they sign in with their corporate profile, corporate identity, you can override all of these controls, at which point, yeah, you can get extensions, you can do your work, you can do sync for bookmarks and everything else and actually be productive. Because the idea is on a Gmail profile, you're most likely not productive. You're just kind of wasting company time, right?
Awesome. That was a great round of questions. Let's give one more round of applause for Alex. We've got the QR codes on the screen. We have the Chrome specialists up here, so please come up, ask a question, grab a dyno, and make sure to check out Chrome on the expo floor. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.